Thanks so much for coming to our panel, Queer Gamers Coast to Coast.
Nope.
Here we all are at GaymerX. Some of us have traveled thousands of miles, spent a lot of money, disrupted our schedules to spend some time playing games with other queer people.
But why have we done that?
Well, before we answer that question, let's do a quick introduction. My name is Matt. I'm a writer and a storyteller based in Seattle. I write about gay stuff for The Stranger and The Advocate. I have a podcast called The Sewers of Paris, where I talk to gay men about the entertainment that has changed their lives. I also have a book called Defining Marriage that I wrote about my time working on the Prop 8 trial.
And I'm James. I've worked on some video games for LucasArts, Capcom, and Leapfrog. Yes, the background in that photo is real. The game is Pokemon Omega Ruby, and it's also my scruff picture. Those are the questions I always get about that photo.
So we both went to the last two GaymerX's, and we had a fabulous time, but we wondered why so many people are willing to disrupt their lives for events like these. After all, there are already events that celebrate being gay, like Pride.
And there are events that celebrate gaming, like PAX. So why are people so interested in getting together for something that combines the two?
So we decided to ask people in their homes. So over the summer of 2014, we did a road trip from LA to Vancouver, then Chicago and Maine, then back through Denver to San Francisco for GaymerX 2. And along the way, we interviewed 50 different GaymerX attendees about their reasons for going to the con in 2014. Some of them were gay, some were lesbian, some were genderqueer, some were trans, some were straight. And this presentation is about what we learned.
So a couple notes. These are just the people that we talked to. We're not saying that this is the queer gaming experience. These are just, specific to the individuals that we met with. Also, some people are going to talk about their experiences of being harassed, and in that they're going to mention slur words. If those make you uncomfortable or you don't want to hear them, we just wanted to let you know. So for a lot of people, games were really important to them from an early age. Pretty much everyone we talked to had strong memories of the games that they played and that really mattered to them when they were kids.
I grew up playing Ocarina of Time. Obviously, I'm kind of a fan of the Zelda series.
Final Fantasy X.
Final Fantasy X 2 is probably my favorite video game of all time.
The original Final Fantasies, Mega Man,
Chrono Trigger, Xenogears, Xenosaga.
When I was little, I loved Sim Ant.
I love King's Quest. Roberta Williams is my idol.
The game that featured the 7-Up spot.
Virgin Fantasy, the original Sonic the Hedgehog.
The flat top Pac-Man.
Yeah.
Well, I'm cleaning out my dad's silver. I call it like penny quarters. So I was big time at the arcade.
Like we spent most of our summer like playing Street Fighter Alpha 2 like on the highest turtle setting and like in the world. Like I mean, you're like talking about it looked like Dragon Ball Z with that bitch.
Double Dragon this post-apocalyptic New York, and I was living in post-apocalyptic New York growing up in the 80s.
Atari games like combat and adventure with the dragons that look like ducks, and they're still my favorite.
Mega Man 2 was a huge part of my life. I thought about it every day. I would go sit in the Toys R Us waiting for Mega Man 3 to come out, thinking any second now. A year later, it actually came out.
So gaming also meant special time with family.
I really took the lead from my mom. She was a total gamer. My first memory as a human was her playing on a DOS computer, like the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It was, especially my dad. There was one night, we were playing Asteroids. He was really good at Asteroids. And then he handed me a controller. He handed me a joystick. And I was terrified because I knew I was going to screw it up. I was going to die. And then the game ruined. Who cares? It's a game. It's fun. It's not a big deal. And that was a very important moment for me as well. Like, yes, he just did this really cool thing, but it's still about having fun. Even if you screw up, oh well, then try again.
When my parents were still together, I was probably 6 or 7 at the time. They actually used to play Dungeons and Dragons with a bunch of their friends. And one time my dad's like, I gotta step outside for a minute, play my character during this combat. And I'm like, my dad's trusting me with his character. This is awesome. So I sat down and I started asking questions and I figured things out. And I was addicted from that point on. this is what I wanted to do.
So I had surgery for my cerebral palsy, and I had just seen a commercial for Final Fantasy, and I was like, Mom, that's what I want. And she was like, no. And so she got me like Crash Bandicoot and Tomb Raider, and so I had to give her the face like, yeah, thanks, Mom. Great. And then my dad came behind me and was like, look behind the couch. And I was like, and so I went behind the couch, and there was Resident Evil 1, Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 3, Legacy of Kain. It was like the darkest, most demonic game ever.
I got involved in World of Warcraft because my son wanted to play, and I tested all the games that he played at that time. He was young, so there was a free download. I downloaded it, and we started a raid group, and it was kind of a bunch of people that had never raided together, and we were kind of thrown together, and I kind of became the mother.
So gaming was often something that was passed down from parents to kids and occasionally from kids to parents.
And something we heard from people over and over again is that when they were kids, gaming felt safe. It was something fun, and it was something that brought people together.
But then that changed, because at a certain age, the gamers that we spoke to realized that they weren't like other kids.
I'm sitting there like, I have all these likes and loves, and it's like I didn't have a place to really express, and even in like anime groups and whatnot, it was kind of like, you don't like it the way I like. You guys saying like all the girls with big boobs in the anime, and I'm just like, who's that guy over there? And even like going like Otakon, like I still didn't have that like expression because I couldn't really identify with the games my gay I was working at. And then my friends were too busy like at the little mixers trying to like socialize with the girls because that's the one place they really could actually have to girls.
I found this naked lady playing card on the ground. And I was like, oh my God, this is so lucky. I have this like sexy lady. And I carried it around. I remember like showing it to my friends at school. And I was more excited by the fact that they were excited to look at it, my male friend, than I really was about this lady in lingerie with her breasts hanging out. And I remember going home shortly after that and thinking about what I would do with this lady. And then some switch was made at some point where I thought about a man with her. And then from that point on, it was like, oh, I'm attracted to men.
Unfortunately, my parents were not very accepting of me coming out. My mother basically gave me away to my father. And once my dad had me, my stepmother that he married was not very supportive and had the thought process that she could beat the gay out of me, and kind of psychologically manipulated my father into thinking that as well. He was a very physical sort of person.
So for a lot of these folks, realizing that they were queer was a real crisis for them.
Throughout their childhood, gaming had been something that brought them closer to their family and helped them to make friends. It was what they did with the people that they cared about, and it made them feel like they belonged.
But being queer did the opposite. It was something that set them apart, and they started to feel like they didn't belong after all.
A lot of folks wanted to share their love of games with queer friends, and a lot of them wanted to talk about their sexuality with their gaming friends, but sometimes that didn't go so well.
I mean, I could never quite interact with a lot of my peers.
When I was a kid, all my friends were like the nerdy boys, and the very fact that I was also into the same nerdy stuff that they were into made them assume that I wasn't gay. And if you talked about gay stuff, it was not okay.
Going to PAX for the first time really opened my eyes to this is the community where I feel most at home. But then after I started, participating in that community more, I also then started to see how I wasn't fully at home there, that, that the media in that community wasn't being made for me.
Like, I've always been a part of the gamer world, and I have a lot of friends that are part of the gay world, but that never meshed together. Like, they were always very separate friend groups.
Yeah, the two never overlapped. In the gay community, there's just other things going on, and so they don't it's not always the best time to pull out a board game and be like, hey, guys, want to play Risk?
In the more typical gay community, people don't get it.
And so, yeah, it was like when you're talking to somebody and you just tell them, by the way, you know that, the Xbox has this kind of processor speed over the PS4's processor speed. They're like, wait, what? Like, why do you know this information? And it's like, I have varying interests. Thank you very much. Read.
My biggest gamer friends were all straight men. Which, I mean, not a bad thing. Straight men are people too, and we should give them all the love they deserve. But like, there was definitely like, we could only talk about video games. Like, talking about relationship stuff was a little like, you're into girls, I'm into dudes. Like,
You know, like we have PAX East here in Boston that when you go, you sometimes are concerned about, being out, and, sometimes some people are being very immature, some people being homophobic. Other times if you just go, to do other events like, for example, going to Gay Pride, folks are mainly more focused on either the more body conscious aspects of Pride, looking good, or or we don't necessarily get to really talk about people's interests beyond just being gay.
So whether they were hanging out with other gamers or hanging out with gays, a lot of the folks that we talked to never felt completely comfortable in either of those groups, and that made dating particularly difficult.
We would all have stories about going on dates and being like, telling someone that, oh, I play World of Warcraft, and their eyes just glaze over, and you're like, okay, that's when the date ended.
You're hanging out with other gay people, and you start talking about board games and stuff that is kind of like get glossy, and you're like, I'm not okay. It's not fun. So I like talking about that stuff.
I wish that there was a place that I can go that wasn't necessarily a bar, and be able to hit on men without having to worry about or ask them if they're gay or straight. Would be a very great thing if I could, hit on someone knowing that they're both gay and a geek. Or gay and geek and into leather sex. Even better. Like gay, geek, leather sex, Renaissance Festival, Star Trek.
Maybe my favorite soundbite of the entire thing. It's so specific. And that one bar, can you imagine what that one bar would be?
It would be an episode of Next Generation.
So for a lot of these folks, their problems didn't just stop with rejection. There was also a strong possibility of harassment.
Because sometimes with gamers, it's they don't really care for drag queens. When I started playing World of Warcraft, I was in a raiding guild, right? Like I was in a serious hardcore 40-man, 3 days a week, spending time raiding guild, right? And I left them because they kept using the word faggot in guild chat. And I was like, I'm done.
I was in a guild on my son's server, and that was, anytime we didn't win, it was, that's so gay, or you dumb faggot. And I was just done.
I played World of Warcraft for a short period of time. This was a long time before my transition. So identifying as female at the time, there's plenty of bullying when it comes to female gamers. At the time I couldn't even fight that. I just stopped playing. I think I only played World of Warcraft for maybe a week before I just completely stopped.
So a lot of the folks that we talked to felt like their only option was keeping their gayness and their geekiness separate. And just, in one of the clips we're about to see here, there's something wrong with the video, so it's audio only.
Like when you are queer and you identify yourself as part of the gaming community, in a lot of situations you're actually closeted twice.
We're sort of a subculture within a subculture, and both of them are invisible in a way. We're invisibly homosexual, or anywhere along the whole LGBT LMNOP spectrum. But we're also a part of a sub-community that was always shunned in high school as well. You're a dweeb, you're a nerd, you're a geek.
So you have a large group of people who are excited to finally be able to say and come out, yeah, I'm gay and I love playing video games and these are the games that speak to me. And then we have all these other people saying, that makes me feel weird that you're not exactly like me, so never talk again. The only thing that is important is my issues. Because they've been bullied too. So we have these two groups that have been bullied in different ways.
not always seeing eye to eye.
I think I still feel like that Tara Brantford character from Final Fantasy, where that I don't feel like when I'm like at a gay bar that I fit in there, because everybody's excited about a Britney Spears video being on the monitor, and I don't really care about that. And if I talk about a game that had just come out that I'm excited about, they don't care about that. So I never really feel like I fit in anywhere. That's why I have animal friends.
So Tara, the character from Final Fantasy VI that Justin was talking about, is a character that's caught between two worlds. She's half human and she's half magical monster thing. And it's how a lot of the people we talked about felt, like they had to choose between their two worlds, between the gay world or the geeky world. They could only inhabit one at a time, but never fully belong to either. And the problems of the real world kept them apart from other people.
So, for some people, games provided relief from those problems. They found comfort in the worlds where they could express themselves without fear of rejection.
Well, that was why I was so happy with City of Heroes and City of Villains, because it was my escape. It was I was protected, I was happy, I was having fun, and I made relationships with people online that it made being in the game so much better than being in real life sometimes.
So games let players explore, not just being in a new place, but also sometimes being a new person. And the folks that we discovered, the folks that we talked to discovered that every now and then games let you experiment with who you are or who you want to be.
Video games were actually kind of the first way that I kind of became comfortable with expressing other genders. My first kind of gender change happened when someone had bought me a bootleg copy of Pokemon Crystal for my birthday. Because it was bootleg, halfway through the game crashed, and then when I rebooted my save, I was a girl. That was kind of an epiphany moment, because I was like, oh, I like this more than I should.
Favorite characters? Probably Wheatley from Portal. I tend to kind of lean toward characters that aren't really specifically human, because it's easier for me to relate to somebody who's not specifically set into a certain gender. Like robots, they're robots. Wheatley has a male voice, but that doesn't mean he's technically male. Myself being female to male transgender, it's easier for me to kind of relate to characters like that.
I used to, in my twinkish years, when I was in my early 20s and late teens, play as very, like uber-boobied females, strong females. Now I find myself gravitating towards very masculine sort of men with muscles and whatnot. I think it's true that my internal avatar has sort of changed over the years. They represent who I wish I could be at times. And at the same time, it's really nice to be able to press pause and step back from it and not be those people. You're always you, but sometimes you can be someone else if you want to be on the computer.
I definitely give in to the sort of like typical male power fantasy, except queer. Don't know if that's good or bad, but it's so like with Dragon Age and Mass Effect, I build sort of build a boyfriend.
We like to make big muscle guys with beards and mohawks most of the time.
When we play Saints Row, we run around with our characters naked, so it's all about the beards and the muscles, really. And for me, it's inspiring because I do want to have that superhero body, so I work hard to look like my characters.
Sex objects for all.
We read and we play games and we do these things to kind of escape reality. Being able to play a gay character just allows me to further identify with that character and further escape reality, and be that person that I can't be.
I have a lot of favorite game characters. One of them is totally cheating, which is FemShep from Mass Effect. And it's cheating because a lot of what you make that character is your choices. She starts as a relatively blank slate. There's definitely some information filled in, but she is very much what you make of her. But she's so well done, and she's She's so nuanced. The writing and the presentation is so wonderfully done. Easily one of my favorite characters.
Well, I guess, Shepard from Mass Effect. He was a good character. He's the hero, and then just the fact on top of it that the game allowed you to play, a gay character. So it could be the gay hero that I wanted to be.
In the first Mass Effect, I basically just played them as these two, military discipline, like can't reveal our feelings. So the fact that I couldn't actually have a romance subplot with him didn't affect the sexuality of my character.
In the Army, you're forced to be so manly. When you can be anything you want to be, and people will let you be whatever you want to be and accept you for who you want to be, you find people tend to be themselves.
A lot of myself is in those kind of characters that I make. It's nice to see a representation of yourself doing these great and grandiose things.
So even though a lot of these games weren't made with queer characters in mind, they found that they could seek out titles that either intentionally included them or use their imagination to insert themselves into their favorite stories.
Those games let players safely explore aspects of themselves that they might not be able to anywhere else, including dating and relationships.
In Fable, you can flirt with male or female. The storyline's amazing too, but to have that option, until you actually have it and do it, you don't realize how much you missed not having it.
I mentioned Fable because I think that was the first game I played where you could actually play a gay character. It was common. It was, it was something I could identify with.
Like, say, in Skyrim, you could totally marry a guy. And, being a gay man, if you had the choice to marry a girl or a guy, of course you're going to marry the guy.
I really love the Shepard, Kate, and Alenko romance option that was there, but I wish y'all got to fuck more than once. And I also wish Alenko had a beard. And I want to see Shepard and Alenko on the rooftop looking at the stars in Vancouver, where he's from. He is such a sweetie.
I'm playing Fallout 4 still right now, and right now I am in a relationship with a feisty Irish lady, a rugged, roguish ghoul man, a synthetic woman, and I'm currently working on impressing a certain George Clooney-looking paladin. And that really is my idea of a perfect lifestyle. That was a revelation because I was so, I guess, just shocked that something that is part of my life was suddenly in this video game. Having a lot of fun with Irish rogues and ghouls and paladins and robot women. So I think that's the closest a video game is going to get to me, I think.
So a lot of players found that when they could find games with queer content or that were open-ended enough that they could bring that side of themselves into the game, that was something really supportive for them. And being able to play in that way didn't just give them a feeling of escape. What they got from it was a feeling of hope.
For me to find any kind of LGBT game, I really have to search for it because there's not usually a whole lot of media coverage or you really kind of have to know where to look.
It's it sounds so cliche, right? If you say how do you feel when you see someone that's queer in a game or someone that you can relate to? It's just it makes me feel like I'm not so outside of the norm. I know that we're a minority, but it's great to feel yes, you're a minority, but you're accepted. You are allowed to be a human. Any light at the end of the tunnel, even if it's far away, that is so reassuring to me and to my friends and people I know.
So if queer players could encounter or create characters who were like them, maybe they could connect with other players who were like them.
But I think it sort of was an outlet where I can express something in those games. Without it having to necessarily be a live person. It was sort of maybe practice, especially in guilds and everything else, practice for real life.
Somebody sent me a private whisper, and said, "So, are you actually gay?" I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, I am. And that was actually the very first person I had told that I was gay. And they said, oh, well, that's cool. And it was like, I remember I'm sitting there at the keyboard, like shaking. I'm playing a virtual game with people, and I'm sitting there shaking because I've just finally told somebody that I am gay. And the reaction was amazing. And then, and then it felt better. And he didn't like out me to the guild or anything, but I stopped trying to not be gay in the guild. But then it was really just dipping your toes in the water because, well, if my friends virtually can completely accept me for who I am, then my friends in real life, and if they're really my friends, then why is that going to be any different? So it was like, well, I want this in real life too.
A lot of people we talk to still remember the first time that they met queer gamers.
And I kind of started looking for people that were like me. And so I remember one night I went on Google and I typed in gay gamers because I was just like, there has got to be other people. And I found some Tumblr list or something and just literally started adding random people that I saw. And one of the guys played Resident Evil 5, and so we just started playing together, and it just kind of went from there. And so then he started calling me, and so we would speak like once to twice a week on the phone.
A friend of mine just invited me to a group on Facebook we call the LA Gamers, and I was like, I kind of chuckled at first. I was like, gamer? I was like, that's funny. I mean, it just never crossed my mind.
You know, we've talked to people around the world.
We've met a few people on Scruff.
A little bit OkCupid, some friend-to-friend networking.
I joined Spectrum Guild. I found it just searching for LGBT guilds, and basically it's a safe place for anybody.
I got involved with Spectrum when I started first to come out. It was amazing to me. One, that I could be myself and allow myself to be who I am, and two, that they really didn't care.
It's just nice to know that it's not just you, and there are many people like you.
Yeah, it does help, I think, facilitating kind of figuring yourself out when you are surrounded by people who kind of share the same experience as you.
So when the folks that we talked to went looking for other people like them, what they found were others who were looking for the same thing. And once they connected, what they found was not just someone to play games with, but they found people who accepted them and who understood both the geeky side and the gay side, so they could fully be themselves.
I'm not good at talking with people, like, just in general. So it's easier when you've got something to occupy. It's like if I'm just talking to someone one-on-one, I start to fidget. You can really get into the games and have fun and not have to figure out what to talk about, because that's hard.
You can geek out with them, you can talk to them about things, and it's awesome to be able to talk about or joke about things, and that it's part of your passion and everything.
When I travel, I get to also explore a lot of the queer community in those countries, which video games is one of the things that you can bond over, because we play the same exact game, maybe in different languages, but a lot of the times when I'm traveling, you can really get a flavor for what people are like by the games that they play.
I think that video games breaks boundaries. I mean, video games, sports, there's different genres of stuff that, in the world that brings people together.
Especially because you can, if you're both gay, you can just immediately open up about anything. You don't have to hold anything back. Meeting people is the best medicine.
And something else changed when they started meeting queer gamers: dating. When they talked about games on dates with other gamers, instead of being met with glassy eyes, they were met with enthusiasm.
The guy I'm seeing now is very Canadian, and I met him at a board game convention a couple years ago. So it's really funny. The first time I went to his house, I flipped out because I saw an NES right by his TV, and I got really happy. Even if he doesn't play it, just knowing that it's there tells me something about him, something that we already have in common.
We met on Grindr. Yeah, I mean, we didn't know we were like kind of geeks in that way at first. Like over text, it was just like, "What are you doing?" "Oh, I'm, playing some Final Fantasy." "Oh yeah, what's your favorite character?" And so we got into it that way, and it was kind of cool. Right now, he's still under leveled, so I'm helping him, gain experience and whatnot.
We call it the his and his dual PlayStation 3 setups. We have two flat screens next to each other with two separate PlayStations so that we can link through the PSN network and play the same games co-op, but without having to share a TV. It's also great because if we're not in the mood for playing the same game, we could play two separate games on the same screen and still be totally cuddling on the love seat.
So when the folks that we talked to were kids, what they found was that games brought them together. And for a while, their queerness had interrupted that. It set them apart. But once they found that community, of community people who were like them, games could introduce them to other people, to new friends, connect them to people that they cared about.
So it's not often that you have a place where gaming and gayness come together in real life, especially if you live outside of a major city. It's still a challenge to find people like that who are going to accept you.
And that's why so many people get excited about events like GaymerX.
So something like GaymerX is a place where people can go and realize that they're not alone, that there are people like them out there.
I'm still getting into that, being comfortable with myself, and that's something that I'm really looking forward to GaymerX helping me with, because being around that many people that are gay gamers just like me, that are comfortable with it and happy and having fun, that's gonna help me.
So when I found a place or like a con where a bunch of people were gathering to kind of celebrate both aspects and bond as one community, like I had to be there.
I don't know, it just felt like a really big family.
Having that immediate in to be able to go and talk to a person and immediately know you have something in common with them is huge.
Then I could be like, "Hey, want to play Settlers of Catan? Let's do it!" And I was carrying around with me.
Yeah.
And that's how we made friends.
I'd love to meet up with some of the friends I made last time.
This time, what I'm really looking forward to is actually seeing all the guys that I've been talking to all year long. And like we were just the other day we were like, "Oh my God, it's 3 weeks away." And like, can you believe that we've been chatting for a whole year, and like, everyone's birthday came and went, and it was like, it's really exciting. I'm really excited to see them all and give them big hugs.
And I'm not even gonna lie, I'm really looking forward to seeing some Storm drag queens so I can be like, "Yes, bitch, walk!"
I had such a great experience at GaymerX. I really enjoyed it. It was such a positive energy throughout the show. Everybody was just happy to be there and just having such a great time and comfortable. I saw people laughing and singing, and there was a full-on dance number at one point, which was just awesome. And talking about topics that would be at home in any con. But clearly having it at GaymerX allow them to feel comfortable to be very open and honest about the way they discuss things.
I'm hoping that people who are straight go to the event just to see for themselves that as long as you're not a jerk, you're going to belong there.
So while GaymerX might be the biggest event of its kind, it's not the only community. A lot of the people that we talk to have taken a leadership role in creating similar queer gaming groups in their own hometowns. So we're seeing more and more popping up across the country.
We're very well organized, and I think we have the potential to do so much.
I'm hoping for this year we really can build on that and also try to also as a community say, can I start this where I live? Does it always have to be in San Francisco? Can I have this in my town, in my city?
I'm actually the event coordinator for the Minneapolis Gamers group. We'll get together, we'll play video games, Super Smash Brothers, Super Mario Kart 8, or board games or card games or dice games or whatever.
every other month or so, we open up the house on a Saturday from like 3 until 11, and we have board games and card games. I'll set up Dance Central or Raving Rabbits down in the basement.
We also have started Friday Night Sissy Fights, which is a casual night where we do Smash Brothers, Melee Brawl, Project M, Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, Ultimate Marvel, all of those. And for just $2 from 6 to 10 p.m. It started off with just 3 or 4 people every week. Now it's about 20, 25 every week.
We also have like some non-gaming events like ice cream socials, lunches and brunches, and a thing we like to call side quests, which are like kind of random off events where we get to try something different, like hiking or yoga.
I host a monthly queer women's board game group at Ray Gun Lounge, and I do a bi-weekly queer women's board game night at Phoenix Comics and Games.
I think just that it's a safe space, and it's also a gay space that's different than the other gay spaces. I think there's some people who aren't comfortable just going to bars and having there being sort of more of a commonality than, hey, we're gay, we'll go to the same place. But here, we're gay and we're interested in some of the same things.
I kind of got inspired by that energy, and so I created a gathering around PAX, the Penny Arcade Expo that's thrown up here. And I'd like to think that the party has been kind of an anchor in developing, or at least helping to develop, the gaming community of Seattle. There have been long-lasting friendships that have formed at the party. The party, I think, has inspired other people to create and put on their own events as well. It's been fun discovering the community organizer within.
So the question we set out to answer is, why do these communities happen? Why are people willing to pay so much money, to travel, to take time, to participate in events like these, whether it's GaymerX or whether it's a local group or a regular board game night or what have you?
And so what we found is that some queer gamers can still feel like outsiders in both the queer community and the gaming community. Some of the folks we talked to are looking for the connection that they had in their childhood to the people that they cared about. For other folks, games are about exploring who they are and who they can be. And for others, gaming's about being a community organizer and making connections between people with similar interests. But the common thing, what they all share, is that they form a tribe of their own where queer and gamer overlap. There's a fellowship, a place where they can freely express those two sometimes contradictory sides of who they are. And that's why events like GaymerX are worth the travel and the expense and all the time. They mean something to the people who participate that they just can't get anywhere else.
Well, I get to be me. I'm gay and I'm a gamer. So hanging out in environments that promote that just allow me to be me.
Solidarity is a big important thing, knowing that you're not alone.
Confirmation that you exist is an amazingly powerful thing. I think at some fundamental level, that's a need that everybody comes to media and entertainment for.
I'm very proud of the person that I am because of the games that I played.
I'm a gamer, and this isn't going to change. This isn't going to be something that I'm going to want to hide or get rid of. Playing video games essentially made me feel completely comfortable with who I was, meet people who supported me with who I was, and then also celebrate me about who I am. It was, without that, I mean, who knows? I might never have felt comfortable. And it was, games, playing video games was a giant turning point.
The gaming community, and this is something that gets forgotten a lot, can really be wonderful to each other, incredibly supportive, incredibly caring, because they feel like family. And not just because they both like Hitman or they both play Call of Duty, but because gaming speaks to them in a way that is very deep and meaningful. And the term I use a lot is fellowship. We do feel this fellowship together because games are so important to us, and we get such a personal thing, out of a personal connection from them. And so when one of our own is hurting, of course, naturally, we want to reach out. We want to help them. So the gaming community can be really, really amazing and giving, and super, super supportive of each other. And that does not get enough credit.
We love gaming and we love being gay. So for sure, whatever happens is going to be awesome.
So before we wrap up, GaymerX and events like it don't only affect the people who attend. As more queer gamers find each other and form communities and attend events, that lets the industry hear what they want, and publishers and developers pay attention. We're seeing more mainstream games like Dragon Age and Fallout that include queer content, and it's a natural part of the story. And the reason is because publishers and developers realize people want this.
So having more inclusive characters and stories makes it easier for queer people to express themselves and to find each other, which in turn strengthens the community, and a stronger community drives developers to create better representation, and so on and so on.
So, what we're seeing here is a virtuous cycle where games have a positive impact on the lives of LGBT people, and in turn, LGBT people have a positive impact on the games that they play.
So also, we just want to issue a huge thanks to everyone who made the time to talk to us, including the folks that we weren't able to fit into this presentation or just weren't able to fit in enough. A couple quick details about the trip that we went on. We did 52 interviews with folks in 17 different states and also a province. We have about 40 plus hours of stories covering a wide range of topics. Stuff from body image to caretaking to bullying and so on. So lots of other stuff that we didn't touch on in this presentation. And there's still lots more to explore, from gender balance to exploring more with LBs and Ts. We didn't get to go to the South very much because the cities are just so far apart. It was a tough drive. So there's still lots more to talk about and more stories to tell. So we would like to present more of these online, to put this presentation online and talk more about what we've discovered. So we're still working out the details of what that's going to look like, but there are various ways to keep in touch with us. And please let us know your feedback on this presentation and on the project in general. Also, you may enjoy, I have this other project called The Sewers of Paris, which is a podcast about the entertainment that changed the lives of gay men. I have a different guest each week talking about the stuff that made a difference in their lives. 3 of the participants in this presentation have been on the podcast, Ben, Richard, and Charlie. So you can go and find Sewers of Paris on iTunes or wherever you like podcasts, and sewersofparis.com. I also have Sewers of Paris buttons for everyone if you'd like a button. I also wrote a book called Defining Marriage. It's about the marriage equality fight. You can get that on Amazon and at definingmarriage.com. So we want to open it up to questions. Does anybody have questions? Or no questions. That's fine.
We just move
too.
on to the buttons. Oh, sure.
We just, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, while you said that this wasn't defining the queer gaming experience, does it kind of speak to it? It does kind of like present a counter narrative that video games are not something that incites violence or anything. Like the way that we relate to video games are more of an outlet, and we form communities around them. Is it sort of that inherently gay, sort of like we want to create surrogate families for ourselves?
That's a really interesting question. I mean, I think we definitely heard themes to that effect across a lot of people's experiences. I mean, I wouldn't want to generalize to say that that's true for everyone. But, I mean, there is this notion of biological family versus logical family when it comes to the queer experience. And, those can be anchored around all sorts of different topics or interests. And gaming may be one of those where logical families form among queer people because they have, that overlapping set of interests.
Yeah, I'd say that's pretty consistent with what I've heard on my podcast, on Sewers of Paris. Often people will talk about the importance of forming that chosen family. And that's a reason why some titles, like, for example, The Wizard of Oz comes up a lot in conversations about queer entertainment. And I think a big part of that is a story that is explicitly about forming a family of your choosing. But, in a lot of the reporting that I've done for other outlets, even when it's not about queers or not about gaming, I seem to keep running into this thing where when queer people are present, a big part of their lives is seeking out that community. I was just talking to somebody last night who runs a queer LARPing group. And what was the? Oh, I did a piece for The Stranger recently about the furry community in Seattle, and I mean that's another one where, I went to this furry conference, Rainforest, and I wasn't going to talk to queer people, but I wound up discovering, yes, once again, the queer people that I'm talking to keep bringing up, like, well, when I had to go out into the world and meet the people who would be the people I chose to spend time with. This community, the furry community, is where I had my interest and where I found my family. So yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if games, it seems totally consistent that they serve a similar function.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's like Justin said, I think for him there are multiple loci? I don't know what the...
Locuses?
Sure. There are multiple things that, like, what did he say? Renaissance fair, Star Trek, leather sex. I mean, like, these are all things that someone could build a little community around.
And they do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sure.
So, you have a lot of video, a lot of narratives. What else are you doing with the stories that you collected? Like, the presentation's great, but what else are you putting out?
Yeah, that's a good question, and it's something that we're still working out. Because, like you say, we have a ton of footage, and we're trying to figure out, like, what is the way that people would want to consume these stories. And we've got tons more stories. Like, one of the guys in the presentation, Robert, talks about after he came out, he made a pretty significant change in his life and lost 200 pounds. And so we've got another story about, about a lot of people about meeting their partners through games. And folks, a big theme that came up was caretaking. Not expecting this at all, but a lot of folks talked about how they use games to look after and take care of each other.
And unsurprisingly, a lot of those people play healers.
Yeah.
So yeah, player avatars was another thing. A lot of people, it was just fascinating to hear how people use avatars either to explore parts of themselves that are kind of the opposite of who they are, and how other people want to represent themselves and sort of insert themselves into a game world and have that identification. So, I mean, these are all subjects that we could... we could have probably done 30 minutes, 40 minutes on any number of those, but we felt like this was the through line that was most relevant, to GaymerX, since it's about how people come together for things like this.
So we're still trying to figure out, like, what is the way that, like, would it be a podcast, or would it be short videos, or a long feature? Like, what is the best way to present a story like this?
And if you have any ideas, because we obviously
because we
them,
don't,
please do get in touch and let us know.
Yeah. An interesting thing I just wanted to mention on the healer thing that you mentioned, that, these folks are like Dan Lovell who in LA and folks like Chris Severin in Minneapolis. We're talking about the importance of being healers and looking after people and making people happy. Daniel Culp, who's a musician, he goes by Aethernaut, talked about, he's writes this music, and he had this great parallel where at the beginning of the interview, he talked about always playing a healer class, and he said, his words were, "I'd like to make people healthy." And then way at the end of the interview, like 45 minutes later, we were talking about his music, and I don't think he realized this, but he said almost the exact same words about his music, which is really upbeat, it's chiptune music, and he said, "I like to make people happy." And like there's this great parallel between the work that he does in the game and the work that he does with his music, and a lot of the healer type people that we spoke to also work in the medical field. We were not expecting, but one of them was a medical device engineer. Someone else is a psychotherapist. I can't remember. There was another person who works in medicine.
There were a few, and then there was the one who did mad science in Minecraft. Who actually is in like molecular biology?
Yeah, a molecular biologist who like has all these Minecraft mods and like designs life forms in Minecraft, and then goes to work and does the same thing with Spider Silk. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So anyway, the long story short is please let us know how you would like, what would be your preferred way to watch something like this. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've considered that.
There's I think there's a session later on that our friend Josh Trujillo is going to be doing.
Yes, I believe that's correct. So Josh Trujillo is doing a thing about Kickstarter. So we're going to go.
So we're going to go and take copious notes.
Yeah. We've been looking at the various crowdfunding opportunities. I mean, particularly after have you guys seen this MST3K thing that was just like this enormous success? You look at something like that where they raised like $4.4 million so far, since Thanksgiving. Yeah, oh yeah,
Uh-oh.
yeah. It's
Gotta
like
get on that.
almost over. And so it's easy to look at something like that and be like, yes, Kickstarter, the wave of the future. But then, bearing in mind that a lot of times, these Kickstarters do not go so well. So we want to be strategic about that.
Well, we also wouldn't need $4 million.
Maybe you wouldn't need $4 million. Gotta keep me in my furs. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we talked about is that the uncut footage from these might be useful for academics in terms of qualitative research. And so, I mean, that's certainly something we could probably make available. And, when it comes to stories, we're not good at math, so stories are better for us. But I think that there is a session later today, it might actually be right after this, where someone's presenting a lot of quantitative research. So that also kind of rounds out stuff you just saw.
Any other questions? Do come get a button if you'd like one. We've got lots, so they're all here. Yeah, and please get in touch. Let us know your thoughts. Let us know how you'd like to see more, if you would. And thanks again for coming.
Thank you.